My name is Shannon, and I'm a fifth-year PhD student in social psychology at New York University. Yeah, as an undergrad, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do after undergrad. Most of my specialization in my undergraduate career was in clinical psychology, so I thought I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. And so I took a few different routes to test that out. I actually took an internship at a mental health institute and figured out it wasn't really for me. I actually took a few years between undergrad and graduate school to figure out then what did I want to do. And so in that time, I did the first 2 years working for AmeriCorps. I worked as the assistant director of a community-based research program, and that was great. That was doing community-based research with nonprofit organizations, so organizations that don't have a lot of money and they really rely on grants to get their money. And what we did was sort of go into these organizations and work with them to gather data about the effectiveness of their programs. And I did that for 2 years, and then I worked at the University of Pennsylvania in the cancer research program as a clinical research coordinator. And I think what I realized out of those different experiences or those different programs is that I really liked research. And so one commonality that came out for me was that the science behind psychology was really exciting to me. And so when I started thinking about what I wanted to do then, that's what really informed my decision to go into a graduate program that specialized in research and social psychology. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things people could do with a PhD in social psychology. You're really well trained in research programs to go into a variety of different fields. And so one route that students often take is they go the academic route, so they continue in academia and they go on to be professors. They might go to a variety of different types of academic professorships, so they could go the research route and go work as professors in more research-oriented schools, or they could go the teaching route and go work as professors in more teaching-oriented schools. So oftentimes those are smaller liberal arts colleges, but there's also a bunch of other opportunities. So as a graduate student in these PhD programs, you're well trained with research background and statistics background, analyzing data, to go work in different fields. So for example, oftentimes people might work in the private sector at places like Google or Facebook or eBay, where they're constantly collecting data. And what they need are people who know statistics, who know about data, who know about research to help them within their companies. Oftentimes people also might go into jobs like science writing, and so in those cases, these are people with a love of research who aren't necessarily conducting their own, but are doing a lot of reading of the research, and then they distill it and they integrate it and they write about it for the general public. So I personally am going to take the academic route and so get a job at a research university where I'll spend, again, a lot of my time conducting research. PhD programs can differ a little bit, especially in how much emphasis they put on classes versus research. If you're in a PhD program that's really training its students to be researchers, to go the academic route into research programs like my program is, we spend less time in classes, so there are fewer requirements in terms of classes and more time getting our own experience in research. And so we have maybe 8 courses or something that are required of our program, and those are courses that range from basic like stats courses and research methods courses that are teaching you really the foundations of research, to more specialized courses, so seminar courses that involve reading about particular topics, spending a lot of time thinking critically about research that's out there, and then discussing it in classroom settings. In PhD programs that lean a little bit more towards preparing their students for teaching careers, students might spend more time in the classroom and also as teaching assistants, teaching students themselves. And so those PhD programs are really designed to help people be teachers when they leave. What's my favorite part about being in a PhD program or being this major? I have a couple different answers to that. One is as a graduate student, especially in a program that's oriented towards research, there's a lot of opportunity to be independent, to be a researcher who's exploring the types of things that they're interested in themselves. I think personally, I have a passion for research, and so I'm really excited about the opportunity to think about ideas and then test them in a scientific way. That's a really exciting part of graduate school is to be part of the scientific community, asking and answering the questions that you really want to know about human behavior and motivation. And so that's really fun. I think also one thing that's really unique, I think, in academia and in graduate programs that I think is different from other careers is that there's such an opportunity for collaboration. Like there is nowhere else. I mean, we really go outside of sort of the general department that we're in or office that we're in and really get a chance to connect with people from all over the world. So there's opportunities to work with researchers, research collaborations everywhere, and there's these big opportunities like national conferences that we go to together to share and disseminate our work and really build networks of people who are interested in this, asking and answering the same kinds of questions we are, and that's really exciting. Yeah, so I think one of the pros of being in a PhD program is that you're not sort of tied to a 9-to-5 type of job. There's more flexibility and sort of when you're working and when you're taking classes and how you're conducting your research, but the con of that can often be one of the most difficult parts of graduate school, and that's that the work is never done. And so that's one thing I think that's really common among PhD students is this feeling that because it's not a 9-to-5 job, it's not sort of that you close the register, that you shut down the computer at 5, and then you go on to have the rest of your life. It's similar, I'm sure, in undergraduate careers also, of this idea that there's always something else you should be doing. There's always homework you should be doing, even if you're watching TV or at the movies. And so that kind of the guilt that goes along with graduate school that way, that you know you should be working on other things. I have lots of advice for undergrads who are thinking about going into grad school. And probably the most important piece of advice, the thing that I wish a lot of undergrads thought about before they were coming to grad school, or a common problem that I've seen, is that you have to know you want it, and that could be hard. So I think it's very obvious that people who don't have the passion for it when they get here. So you'll often see times like first year in when things start getting hard and you're busy and you're working your butt off, that the people who aren't really passionate about it, who don't know that they want it, or maybe they have a different passion. So in my first year cohort, we had somebody who really is now in a wonderful career as an improv comic. So his passion when he moved to New York was really to do improv comedy. And that was obvious. It was obvious when he got to grad school that this is not where his heart was. And so I think it's really important to know that this is something that you want to do, but that's hard. How do you know that it's something that you want to do? And so that's where I think advice I would give to undergrads is to start exploring as early as you can. So start looking at what opportunities are there that you can get experience. And that's on you. I mean, that's on you to form those experiences for yourself, those opportunities for yourself. Sometimes we get lucky and things are thrown into our lap, but oftentimes we make opportunities for ourselves. And so as undergrads, when you're thinking about, do you want to go into grad school, or maybe is academia the career for you, it's all about exploring, trying to get those experiences and those opportunities early. So my recommendations are to, if you think that you're interested in grad school and research, get started in a lab as early as you possibly can. And figure out whether it's something you like, just like I figured out that clinical psychology was not for me. I think it is valuable. It's just as valuable to know what you don't want to do as it is to know what you want to do. Yeah, I think if students think that they're interested in applying to graduate school programs, starting to think about that early is good. So if you can start thinking in your junior year, or earlier even, if that's something that you're interested in about where you would want to go. So applying to graduate school is like a beast of its own. Graduate programs are typically really competitive. Oftentimes you'll apply to many different schools hoping to get interviews at just a few. And that's just, it's the nature of the game, it's the numbers. It's that many graduate programs are appealing and very competitive, and they only take the best students. And so preparing yourself for that early on, knowing that the process itself is going to be difficult to get into graduate school, just because you've figured out that you want it and you figured out that you have a passion for it, doesn't mean that you can get it. And so again, taking the opportunities early on in undergrad to get involved in different labs, making sure that you have great letters of recommendation, that's a really big deal. So making those connections, that's another reason, practically speaking, why it's really important to get research experience, so that you have writers who can say something more than just, she got an A in my class. Those are the letters that everybody gets. What you want is somebody who can really talk about, what is this person like? what is she like? Who is she as a person? And that often comes through being able to have experiences in different labs. And so yeah, getting opportunities early on in undergrad so that you can best prepare yourself for the application process is really important. Carving out time to take the GREs, that's a really practical consideration. It's unfortunate in a couple ways that the GREs are such a marker of success, at least thought of that way. So preparing for the GREs is a really important aspect of graduate application process also, in that a lot of schools you really use GREs as markers or indicators of success, for better or for worse. And so the best experiences you have if you tank the GREs, unfortunately, the cutoff programs that many graduate schools have, your application might not even get looked at if you tank the GRE. So taking precautions to carve out time in your schedule, in your busy life, to really focus on studying for the GREs so that you can do the best you possibly can on that is really important. And so as you're thinking about the application process, you should be really thinking about, do I have the experiences that make me look like I would be a good candidate for graduate school? Do I have recommendations that can say something about me as a person? And do I have the grades and the scores to get myself past that first threshold? And those are really important if you're thinking about going into graduate school. So really specific advice is to focus on making yourself the strongest, best applicant that you can so that you can go on to get a good position at a graduate school.